she did it. She finally did it. She got me to volunteer for SOAR this year. And I loved it. Hi everyone, my name is Marauding Megs, and today I'm going to be talking about SOAR. SOAR stands for Southern Ontario Amazing Race. And those of you who may not know, Ontario is a province in Canada. And when we're talking about Southern Ontario, we're talking about this area down here. And this would be considered the north part. I will tell you that some of us in the south think this area is up north, which it is not. The event that I'm going to be talking about, we're just talking about the southern area of the province of Ontario. And if you haven't heard about the TV show Amazing Race, it's about several groups of people that are in a team, or that are in teams of two, that race to different places around the world while completing challenges that rewards them with clues to the next location to win the race. It's very exciting. So my friend has been asking me to help to volunteer for the last 3 years. And she finally got me to volunteer to shuttle the racers in this event. And to be honest, I was not looking forward to it. I was not looking forward to the 5-hour drive from where I am to the starting location, which is somewhere near Collingwood. But the main purpose of this event is to raise funds for a charity called the Children's Foundation. So, yeah. I went ahead and did it. And plus, I was a little curious to see what she's been volunteering for the last 3 years. So, why not? So the starting point of the race was a place called Highland Nordic, which is in a little, I don't even know if it's a town or a village, in a place called Duntroon. It's in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by farmland and big fields, large fields of grass. It was actually quite idyllic. I arrived at 9 p.m. to near darkness to a lodge full of people in a mess hall. I was fed and told stories from that day on, which was on a Saturday. And apparently, the racers had to go into an underground bunker made of old school buses. I was like, oh my God, that made me want to be a racer more than shuttling at that point. I also met amazing people while listening to the stories and what was to be expected the next day. After eating and conversing with the people, the racers and the shuttlers of that day, Jillian and I went out and pitched our tent in the darkness with some friends, with some help from some racers with their flashlights. Thank you so much. But I was so exhausted from the day, from pouring rain, thunder, lightning, and a tornado watch, that I was just ready to go to sleep. Well, I tried. You see, I was met with the familiar sounds of nature. So, running water, the crickets, the wind slightly blowing, and then I heard the loudest snore I have ever heard, which was right beside my tent. And then there was another one, and another one, and another one. And I thought I was going to go crazy. We had pitched our tent right in the middle of the Sawing Logs choir, and I didn't have earplugs. Plus the wind kicked up. And I thought we were going to lose the protective layer on my tent to the 4 winds that decided to show up, because we were expecting rain that night as well, and it got really cold. But the thing is with my tent, it comes in kind of 2 parts. So the roof of my tent is made out of this screen mesh that if you wanted to, you could sleep under the stars and you can watch it as you fall asleep. And then there's the top protective layer. And that's what I was worried about, because when we were pitching the tent, we didn't tie up the ends to the poles. And because of the wind that kicked up, I thought we were going to lose it. I was like, okay, we're just going to get rained on, and it'll be fine, whatever. It was just great. So not only did I have to worry about the protective layer just leaving my tent, but I also had to listen to the choir of snores, and you can imagine how much sleep I got. And according to my Fitbit, I slept sporadically for 5 hours. I am a person that loves their sleep. I need to get at least 8 hours. No more, no less. So when the morning hit and I woke up to the song of Walking on Sunshine, you would think that I would go nuts. Like, I would just be so upset. But I'm what people would call a morning person. So I really enjoyed listening to the great sounds of Walking on Sunshine and getting up and dressed and all that. According to Urban Dictionary, their definition of a morning person is that irritatingly happy person that has no need for high-octane coffee when they wake up, which is true. I actually don't like coffee at all. I prefer tea. Generally, these people are a myth found only in Narnia. Only in Narnia. But every now and then, one of them will escape, and it is the job of the much more awesome night people to coerce them back into the wardrobe. I like to see you try. Anyway, as I mentioned before, plus we woke up to a very cold morning, especially for June. This was the first day of June, and typically it's really hot, and we woke up to about 10 degrees Celsius. It was freaking cold. It felt like it was spring, fall, like weather, that in between. So, and it carried on from the whole day actually. And the wind that kicked up late that night also stayed with us for the whole day. But I didn't mind because I love the cold. I really do. So after breakfast and getting the instructions from the event directors, I moved my car into the shuttle lineup and waited for the racers to come and choose a vehicle. Now there was probably about 20 teams of 2. So when the racers came out, there was actually only a few because it came out staggered because of time penalties. Some people had to stay behind because there were some challenges that they weren't able to do or whatnot. So they were coming out slowly. And so it was kind of exciting and the anticipation of maybe they're going to choose you. So finally, a pair of racers came and I made eye contact with one of them. And I was like, oh yeah, they're choosing me. So I jumped in the car, started my car, and they jumped in the back. And then I had to wait because I couldn't go too far because of the rules. Now, the rule of the shuttle driver is that I can only go where they instruct me to go, and they have to be very specific. Like, they have to tell me to go straight to the end and turn right here, or left, or just stay where I am. And I got to tell you, it was really hard. They they had to give me instructions, and it was really hard because, no, you don't understand. I love to take the lead. I like to tell people where to go and how we're going to get there. Like, I am a leader. That's what I like to do. So luckily, though, the majority of the racers that I did help shuttle to other places knew where they were going and knew how to read a map. They couldn't use their phone or use any other GPS devices. That was against the rules. So if you didn't know how to read a map, you were going to have problems. So it is a skill. It is. The majority of them did know, except for one team had slight issues. They were talking about a specific numbered highway that we were going to drive eventually to. And they said this number out loud, and I saw it, and they saw it, but they thought it was not the right one. And my traveler intuition told me that this was the highway to turn right on. Like, I knew we had to turn right. I don't know this area very well, like Guelph and the Collingwood area. I haven't traveled that much through the county area, but I knew, my intuition told me this was the turn, but I had to drive straight. I had to act like I didn't know where I was going or anything, and let me tell you, that was hard. It was really hard. So I just kept going because they didn't tell me to turn left, right, or stop. And we eventually drove into this little town called Fergus, and I knew that we had gone the wrong way. And I was almost at the point, because as a shuttler, you can tell them, you could stop and tell them to look at their clue again because they've gone too far. I mean, the whole point of the race is for them to get to the next event or the next stop. You don't want to keep driving in the wrong direction and know it, and them not to successfully get to the very end of the whole thing. So luckily they had me pull over to a grocery store, and they jumped out to ask the locals, which they're allowed to do to get directions. And they figured out that after gathering all the information that they had, in fact, went past the turn that the highway that I said, yeah, we need to turn here. Well, I didn't say that I knew we needed to turn down. So they got the information, they direct me back to exactly where the highway that they missed, and it cost them 30 minutes total time that they wasted. So I felt sorry for them, but I couldn't help them. They wouldn't let me. It was against the rules. It really sucked. The yoga one. So after we had lunch, they moved on to the next event, which is a yoga challenge. They had to wade into this lake, this body of water that was at the camping site there, go onto a bodyboard and balance themselves while not falling into the water and doing the yoga poses that are I guess were in a specific sequence. And they had to get all the poses right. And if they didn't get one right, they were told they had to do it again, but they weren't told which pose was wrong. So that was savage. Because people would keep on doing it and they think they're doing it right, but then the marshal would say, no, you're wrong, you got to do it again, but not tell them which one was wrong. So that's got to be quite annoying. So when a pair of racers were done that, I shuttled them off to downtown Guelph and just dropped them off in an area, and then my duties were over for the day. So what I did, I met up with Jillian, and we went to the final location where they would be figuring out who the first, second, and third place winners were. And let me tell you, it was intense waiting to see who's going to come up, who's going to come running or driving up. And there was this pair of guys that came up, and there was this chain link fence with a dozen of combination locks that you would use when you were in high school. Apparently, there was some other challenges after I dropped them off that had code numbers, and they had to gather all those clues, come to this chain link fence with all the locks on them, and figure out what the combination sequence was, and try them on all of them. Now, you don't know what the sequence was. They didn't tell you, so you had to guess a sequence, and if all of them were wrong, then you had to rearrange the sequence again and try them all again, and if you got one unlocked, then you move on to the big SOAR mat, which is similar to what it looks like in the Amazing Race game on TV, and you had to jump there with your lock, and hopefully that you would be the final winner, and they did. They got it. They unlocked the lock, they ran to the mat, and they got on there, and they won first place. And then the second and third place winners, they were both there at the chain link fence thing, trying to get the combination locks. Oh my God, it was so intense. It was an exciting end to an amazing event. In the end, the teams raised just over $73,000 for the Children Foundation in the Guelph and Wellington area, which I thought was spectacular. Not only did they have adventure and fun, but they also gave back to the community. So now I'm excited to help out next year and do the full weekend instead of just doing one day, which I just came in for the Sunday to help out with the shuttling. And maybe I'll be a racer next year. Who knows? You'll have to wait and see. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Have a good day. Bye!